Hey, well, being able to come back live. Like I said, being able to come back live, family. I'm in the garden here for 25 minutes, maybe. A couple of things I want to talk about. Before I want to chill for 1 minute before I get started, family. Hope everybody doing well out there. Family, the title is just a little food for thought. Definitely want to talk about the economics and how a lot of things are not what they seem to be. Family, we're going to talk about. Actually, I want to just give a clear understanding, kind of let you know, really, in layman's terms, you know, how the economy isn't what they say it is, and I'm gonna break it down where you kind of understand it. Then you're gonna be like, oh, okay, yeah, make a lot of sense. Okay. We're gonna break down the true GDP. We're gonna talk about how at that meeting of the minds or the meeting of the leaders, what came out of that? You did a true understanding of tariffs, uh, a true understanding of GDP, and how to prepare yourself in the future. Family, first of all, I want to. Oh man, hold up, that's my camera. Okay, family. First of all, I want to just say thank you for joining me in the garden. And if you haven't had an opportunity, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to videos. Uh, this is going to be a pretty cool video today because this is going to give you a clear understanding about how the economy works, right? And how you can understand that a lot of it is kind of smoke and mirrors. And as an individual, how you can benefit from it, okay? And how a lot of the stuff that they say on the television is not uh, actually accurate. I want to talk about that. What's going on, Hobby? Okay. First of all, family, I want to talk about this GDP situation and kind of explain to you, family, how, you know, this market, not just the US market, but how the global market is about to experience a depression. And it's all planned and it has to happen. Like I said, it's been 10 years. Germany right now is having a recession. All right. And so, you got to ask yourself, well, coach, what does a recession mean? How do you know and when do you know when the recession is going to happen? First of all, family, the numbers are skewed. All right. First of all, we talked about GDP in my past videos, and GDP, family, is gross domestic product. And that's the amount of goods and services sold in the United States in a quarter or a year, right? And what is gross domestic product? That's consumer spending, which is us, government spending, okay, which is the government, which is the budget, uh, corporate investments, okay, and then something called net exports. Now, net exports, when I explain what that is, you're gonna know automatically that the whole GDP number is a farce. Family, let's just look at consumer spending. Consumer spending, how can we basically have high consumer spending right now when the president wants to cut payroll taxes? And remember, I told you in the last video, when you want to cut payroll taxes, that means you want to make sure that you have more net income after you pay taxes. And having more net income, what does that mean? That would actually give individuals or consumers a more incentive base to spend money. So if that has to happen, family, then we know that the C aspect of the GDP, which is consumer spending, is skewed. It's not accurate. Okay. Let's look at government spending. We know that the government spending, that's our budget. And remember, I told you in the last video, we have a $1.4 billion budget, a $1.4 trillion budget, but $760 billion of that is going toward the military. So as far as government spending, how is that going to increase the GDP if 2/3 of the budget is going toward the military? So that money is not going toward consumers to give them more money to buy. See how this works? So family, remember, consumer spending, we know that's not right. That's down. Government spending, we know that's skewed because they're spending more money on the military. Corporate investments, family, who got a big tax cut this past year? It was the corporations, right? And when the corporation got this huge tax cut, what did they do with all the millions and millions of dollars that they received? Did they put it back into the company by raising their salary workers' salary or salary workers' salary? Did they produce more products to give to the public so that the public can buy more? Or did they put the money back into their own pockets by buying their stocks back and increasing the salaries of CEOs? The last one. So that didn't do anything for the American people. And what I mean by that, corporations didn't put money back into the community or put money back into the workers' pockets or raise the salaries of the workers. They didn't do that. They just bought more stocks, which what they call stock buybacks, right? And then they increased their own CEO salary. And so when you do that, that's why when you look at the stock market and it rose so high after the tax cut, it wasn't because the average middle class family or lower middle class or just the individual. It wasn't because they got rich or that they gained a lot of capital gains or money from investing. No, the corporations just bought their stocks back, which propped up their stock price. Is that real or no? No. Okay. So we know that based on 3 elements of the GDP, consumer spending, we know people not buying like they used to. Stores are closing. I mean, they just said they want to raise minimum wage. People are losing jobs. So we know that consumer spending isn't what they say it is. We know that government spending is skewed toward the military. And so we know that corporate spending, based on the tax cut that they receive, only put monies back into their own pockets. And then the last one, family, is net exports. Now, I don't know about you, but all you have to do is go driving around and see how many foreign cars are on the streets. See how many Hondas and Toyotas, okay, that you see on the streets, opposed to Fords and American cars. That right there tells you that we have a negative net export. And what is net export? That is exports minus imports. But what are exports? Exports are what, we bring, what we make into our country, what we produce or manufacture in the country and sell internationally to other countries. What's up, Ty? That's what that's what exports are. Everything that the country produces or manufactures and they sell abroad, that makes up your exports. What are imports? Imports are everything that comes into the country that consumers buy or corporations buy. Okay. Now remember, in my last video, I talked about assets and liabilities. Now, from a country standpoint, family, what is a liability and an asset when it comes to exports and imports? Would a country be richer having more exports or more imports? They need more exports to be rich. To have a very, very positive GDP, a country have to sell more stuff to the world than receive more stuff from the world. You did? And so when you're driving on the streets, ask yourself, how many times are you seeing Toyotas and Hondas and Hyundais, Isuzus, okay? Opposed to Fords and Chevrolets. Just do your own research. Do your own experiment and just drive probably just a mile down the road. And I promise you, you're gonna see way more foreign cars than American cars. Look at the back of the items that you buy. They're going to be made from China or made from Indonesia or made from another country. Right away, that tells you that the exports and import disparity weighs way more toward the imports, which means that we have a negative net export. All right, family? So I just kind of broke it down, the economics of our GDP. And you ask yourself, is this economy good or bad? How much you guys spending? We know the government's spending on military. We know corporations are only spending on themselves. And we know we have negative net exports. You did? All right. And so this is just a quick economic financial education lesson, family. So the next question is, well, Bean, how do you know we're in a recession? Well, when you have 2 consecutive quarters, right, of a negative GDP. Okay, 2 consecutive quarters of a negative GDP. So once again, let me tell you again, pay yourself first. All right, because eventually, based on the indicators. And remember, not only is the GDP an indication that the economy is going to crash, but also this so-called trade tariff. And I just kind of put in perspective what the trade tariff is and how that's just a scam. How's it a trade tariff when all we do is buy things from other countries? Come on, man. And when Trump says he want to make it equal, how can you make it equal when we don't produce anything in America? You have to manufacture and produce products to sell to the world before there can be some equality in a so-called trade agreement. But when one country is only buying imports, and other countries are exporting, then you tell me who's winning. That is, come on, man. That's common sense 101. Everything is made from China. And now, family, China is basically expanding themselves, expanding their horizons. China has actually now become what they call colonizers of Africa. China has invested billions and billions of dollars in Africa, building up the infrastructure, bridges and highways and doing all that stuff right there. And they're building up all this infrastructure in Africa. You know why? Because China knew that eventually, being the biggest manufacturer and producer of the world, that most of those people that are working in those factories are going to eventually make enough money where they're going to want to become middle class. And that's why China had to expand. But think about us over in the United States. We don't produce anything. We don't manufacture anything. And so when Trump said we want to bring manufacturing back to the United States, I can dig it for, for so-called jobs. But guys, I don't want you in the garden having that job mentality. No, we're looking at a situation where we're having a, you know, passive income mentality where, we're looking to make our money, make more money. And your job is not a job, but it's employment used to build your cash so you can invest. And family, don't sleep on international investments because a lot of time we get stuck in this bubble, and this bubble is America. It's not an accident, family, that most multimillionaires and billionaires, a lot of those people, they invest in countries outside of the United States, not just here. So I'm here, family in the garden, to broaden your horizon, to let you know that once this market crashes, and even before the market crash, if you sit on some capital, do your research on the international market, what they call emerging markets. Singapore, Rwanda in Africa, Taiwan, uh, Brazil, countries in South America, countries in Asia, countries in India. Family, there are great opportunities out there. And I'm not just talking about investing in their companies, but I'm talking about real estate. Okay. Even currency is a great opportunity to make sure you invest in. Because what I mean by currency, family, if the dollar is the strongest right now, right? And then you have all these countries that, like say, Iraq. Iraq dollar currency is called the dinar, right? And right now the dinar is almost like 850 to 1 to the American dollar. What does that mean? That means for every 850 dinars, it equals $1. Okay? So think about if you invest in dinars or other foreign currency and you have that in your portfolio, and once the market or the currency market adjusts itself, because remember, the only reason why currencies are so much higher than the United States is because of inflation. And once countries are able to stabilize their inflation, they're able to bring down the currency to a more uh, international level, which is a great opportunity to invest in. Okay, so but I just want to come back with a little economic information and just kind of let you know what GDP actually entails and how per se that it's really not a problem. Actually, it is a problem in America. How it isn't as great as they say it is because remember, consumer spending is down. A lot of people not spending as much as they used to. Government spending is going only toward the military. Corporate spending, like I told you before, is only uh, doing stock buybacks and raising the corporation's CEO salaries. If you work for a corporation, ask yourself, when's the last time you got a big raise? And then the last one, family, was net exports. And everything is imported, and we don't never send anything out. So we know that GDP is a scam. And we know also, too, that you need to pay yourself first and get yourself in a great opportunity to benefit from this wealth transfer. Family, I promise you, this is done periodically, not by accident, but it's to take advantage of the millions and millions of people that doesn't have the financial literacy necessary to avoid these type of recessions and bank robberies, because that's what they are. You did. Because if you are contributing to your 401k or any type of pension plan right now, please make sure that you do your due diligence and check to find out what is it that your money is going toward. What type of mutual funds is your money going toward? Don't just send them your money and you don't know, because I promise you, what happened in 2008 and 2009 is going to be triple once this market crashes. Like I say, Germany is already in a recession. Italy and all those countries overseas right now are struggling. And the United States is struggling right now. In fact, all you got to do is look at what's going on. But don't look at it from a television standpoint. Look at it from an intellectual standpoint and a third eye standpoint. Look around. You did? Okay. So, family, like I said, I'm not religious, but I would like to come back with before I get up out of here, I'm going to be in 20 minutes. It's 20 minutes. So before I leave, I want to give you a story. Okay. And the story is a religious story, but I think it's spiritual in nature. Okay. A lot of you guys have heard the stories about Jesus and how he turned water to wine, and how he walked on water, and how he healed the blind, he healed the sick, right? And he even resurrected the dead. Okay. Well, if you know anything about religions from other cultures, then you understand about Buddha, Krishna, Huru or Horus, Mithra, Apollo, and all of these individuals' family were born from an immaculate conception, right? They all were considered the sons of God, and they all had these miraculous powers, okay? And so the story that I want to talk about is from Buddha. And the story goes like this, family. There was a woman. Her husband died. And then her son died. And so she was so distraught that she walked around the town holding her son. And he was a baby. And he had passed away. And she walked around the town until she found Buddha. And when she found Buddha, she asked Buddha to bring her son back to life. And what Buddha told her, he said, I will bring your son back to life. But before I bring your son back to life, I need you to go to every household in the village and collect mustard seeds. Okay? So you need to collect mustard seeds. Masked. Thanks for joining the garden. But there was one caveat. The household that she had to collect the mustard seeds from had to be a household that never experienced death. Okay? And so her being a mother so distraught, she went to every household seeking mustard seeds from a household, but from that household, it had to be a household that has never experienced death. Nephew, she went from household, excuse me, she went from household to household to household. And after 3 days, she came back to Buddha. And she came back to Buddha and she told him, I'm okay now. Because every household that she went to, that she told him she went to, had experienced death in one form, fashion, at one time or another. And it wasn't until then she was able to accept the death of her child, accept the death of her husband. Because she realized that it wasn't just her that experienced death. And so when Buddha asked her, do you want me to bring your child back to life? She said no, because everyone experienced death. You did? And so I wanted to end my live family in the garden with that story, because I think it's fascinating. Because a lot of times we get caught up in fear, and we all have certain fears. But understand, family, that your only fear is in your mind. You did? And so let me recap the video, family. Thanks for joining me in the garden. Remember, the GDP economically is false. It's fake. There are 4 aspects of the GDP before I get out of here: government spending, consumer spending, corporate spending, and net exports. Okay, wow, what it do? And all 4 of those aspects of the GDP family is shaky, no matter what they say on the television. Use your common sense. You did? All right, I'm gonna get up on out of the garden. Thanks for joining me, family. In the meantime, between time, any most high side bring you joy. And remember, if you're involved in toxic relationships, it's all in your mind. And being with is out of 5,000.